Well, hello there, everybody. This is Jeremy Siskind. I'm the author. Whoa! Of these hot books. They're so hot I can barely touch them. Jazz Piano Fundamentals and playing solo jazz piano. And today I want to talk to you and give you some tips on how to make things sound really pretty at the piano when you are singing within a single scale. And we're going to just take the major scale, because who doesn't love the major scale? Right? How do you, if you have, let's just say, you're going to set up a tune and just vamp in C major for 8 bars. How do you make it really sparkle? So I've got some tips for you, and I'm going to show you how to do all of them, because I'm a nice guy. I'm just that kind of guy. Okay, so I think the first thing to think about is that you want to use dissonant intervals. And I know that that is unintuitive or counterintuitive, right? Because if we want to make something pretty, we should use consonant intervals. But that's not really how it works, right? If we just stuck to consonant intervals, there's not a lot of texture there. And in fact, we want to really seek out those dissonant intervals and try to have at least one really dissonant interval per chord, or sometimes 2. So when I say dissonant intervals, what are some of the most dissonant? I think major seconds, which translate plus an octave into major ninths. That's going to be really beautiful when combined with some other notes. Sorry, there shouldn't be an F in there. I was just leaning on that key. More dissonant than that, minor seconds, which translate into the very dissonant minor ninths. And I don't know really if it should be on our list or not, but tritones certainly are very dissonant. So these are the ones that you want to seek out. So let me show you a few ways you could do that. You could combine. So actually, first, I'm just going to improvise with just 2 voices. And now I'm going to be essentially alternating between a very dissonant interval and then a consonant interval. So maybe I'll start with a 6th, go to a minor ninth. Of course, that sounds terrible on its own, but in context, it's going to sound okay. Minor second, major second, major 7th, so I'm really gravitating towards a lot of these dissonant intervals because that's where the tension, the beautiful tension happens, right? Maybe there's something like profound in there that it's only the dissonant things that's most beautiful, right? If everything in life is going your way, it's not really that interesting. It's only when you add in those other things that the beautiful moments really shine. That's my philosophy for today. So if I'm improvising with just 2 voices, I might do something like that, right? Now, if I can play more, then I'm going to maybe have 2 dissonant intervals, or I'm going to combine some measure of consonant and dissonant intervals. Like, how about this chord here? So here we have a 6th on top, but between these 2 notes, it's a major 7th plus an octave. Call that interval whatever you want. I can't do that math. It's a 15th, I guess. And then also, interestingly, between these 2, we have dissonance, right? That's a major 9th. So in this chord, one way to think of it is we have 1 consonant interval, and then we have these 2 dissonant other intervals. Or how about this one? Again, it's not something I would play just in isolation, probably. We have a minor 9th here, a major 9th here, but a consonant 3rd between the outside intervals. This one here, major 9th, major 7th, and a 6th. Notice also that these intervals are generally nice and spread. We could have clusters, certainly. There's a certain beauty, to a cluster of notes. But as I'm trying to play really impressionistic, pretty things, I'm generally keeping those notes spread. Let's go back to this last chord, because this is kind of a fascinating one. The outside notes couldn't be more dissonant. Within, it looks like a G major chord. I mean, it is a G major chord in first inversion, with that fourth added. If we're tallying dissonant and consonant intervals, this one's very dissonant, this one's pretty dissonant, but then these are all consonant. So I wouldn't really want to have just pure consonants. I mean, there's certainly decades and centuries of lovely music written, church music, church hymns use all consonants, but it's all these chords like this, tritone, minor ninth, second, but how pretty is that actually? Now, oddly, in a way, this is the same technique that I often, describe Thelonious Monk as using, that he will leave out notes to emphasize certain dissonances, that instead of playing, a C dominant 7 flat 9 like this, he will leave out the third so that the dissonance is more stark, right? And if we were tallying up the consonants and dissonance here, we would have dissonance, dissonance, consonants. I'm not really a formula guy. That's a lie. I love formulas, but it seems like a lot of these chords, 3-note chords have 2 dissonances and 1 consonant. Now, I do try to think melodically about some of it. I like having my outside notes moving in contrary motion where possible. I kind of like that always. So, for instance, I know you can't see that top note. It's a G. Maybe I would go from this chord, which again, very dissonant notes in here, to this chord. So there's intention behind these outside notes. And then the inner stuff, I'm just filling in with stuff that makes me happy because it's got some somewhat strident dissonance. There, but I couldn't resist. That sounded so nice, right? Another chord with a really strident dissonance in it. One interval that I'm almost completely avoiding is a third, right? The most kind of standard consonant interval. And I have some 6, which are a more spread out version. But as I'm trying to make this really magical, I'm not... I want to avoid anything that sounds like a triad because that's going to be familiar. I want to break that up in some kind of unexpected way. Now, one last disclaimer, which is that tone really matters here, right? I'm playing all of these really softly, delicately with a crystalline tone. If you're playing... right, you could play the nicest thing in the world, the most interesting combination of consonant and dissonant intervals, but it's not going to have the same ring because part of this is just sonic. So make sure that you're not dropping your weight into each chord. Instead, think horizontally. Think about moving from one chord to the other. Fred Hirsch described this as the turtle of kind of moving side to side rather than dropping. So if you can think of a turtle swimming, that's essentially the motion that you want to use at the piano. Okay? Hope you enjoyed that. If you did, check out these books. They're pretty good, if I do say so myself. Playing solo jazz piano, Jazz Piano Fundamentals. Thanks for your likes, subscribes, comments, and good vibes. See you soon.